missing from the article that is coming. That's what at least one financial expert is saying. Charles Brown of CB3 Financial says,
one of the brilliant moves that Kmart has done is to partnership with Facebook in these e-gift certificates, so you can actually...
Of government mismanagement. Charles Brown is the president of CB3 Financial Group. He joins us this morning from Chicago.
Significantly dropping. Basically, this is the year of the consumer.
Believe that they're capable of managing anything?
Well, it's sort of like handing the keys to the chicken coop to two wolves.
Good evening, everyone. For almost the last year, you've gotten used to me starting my program with my opening announcement, but tonight's going to have to be different. You see, I wouldn't be doing this show tonight if it were not for a man named Rush Limbaugh, who left us. I listened to Rush over the years, but I really only started listening to him full time, so to speak, last January, and just 2 months later, my producer, Tom, at Innova Digital, said, you've got to go live. You just have to go live. This market's crashing. People want to hear from you. And I said, I don't have any idea how to do it. And he said, well, just talk to the people. And I thought back, that's what Rush does. He just looks into the camera, looks into the mic, and talks. In 2020, the Rush Limbaugh Show reached more than 20 million monthly listeners and is the most listened to radio show of all time. The great Ronald Reagan said, pioneers can't be those who need the security of the familiar. Trailblazers are not trail followers. There are no easy answers, but there are simple answers. We must have the courage to do what we know is right. I knew I needed to go on the air that night, and I needed to talk to you guys, to tell you what was going on with COVID-19 and that we were going to be okay. I felt very strongly I needed to do that. Rush believed in American exceptionalism, and so do I, and I hope I've communicated that to you through this almost full year now of doing this program. You've heard me rave about the things that are happening here in America, the good news, and I'm trying to separate what you're hearing in the media from what really is happening here. I didn't know Rush, but I have a dear friend who actually spoke to Rush one time about how she was using his children's books, they are called Rush Revere, in her homeschooling program. On our CB Live show, we provide opportunities for investors to come in, invest in the companies we believe in, that we think will grow, and then we'll all share in that wealth creation. We've created a community, and I'm really excited about that. That's what makes the United States so great. That's what makes our community here so great, that a dreamer, an entrepreneur, someone with an idea can start a business and grow it by getting others to invest in. And that still, folks, that still allows us to share in the success of those entrepreneurs. And this will not change. Do not doubt me on this. I love this country and the opportunities to grow wealth that we discover and then discuss each Thursday night. I'm privileged to say that at the beginning of every broadcast, and I thank Rush Limbaugh for the inspiration he provided me to do this program, and I wanted you guys to know that. It's the privilege that I have to say, from Nashville, it's Thursday, February 18th. I'm your host, Charles Brown, Portfolio Manager with CB3 Financial. We are so glad you've joined us. From COVID to the U.S. political scene to the world economics to clarity. This is CB3 Live. All right, guys, we got a full night here. Is the pandemic peeping? Peeping or peeking? Well, it's peeping at us, and it's peaking, in my opinion. I said this back in mid-January, toward the end of January, I suppose. And the data you're going to see tonight is really encouraging. It's been a long, long haul, but it looks like we're pulling out of it. And the secular bull market just continues to roll on. Those of you that are new, I hope that opening didn't shock you too much. I needed to do that. I wanted to do that. It was appropriate. That's not how we normally start our shows. But if you're new, be sure you subscribe to us, okay? Click the button there on the little bell and you'll get updates when we go live. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. A lot of people following us on LinkedIn, all right? So, Corona America, what is happening here? I love the green, guys. 56 million plus vaccines, which is now twice the number of the total confirmed cases. So we have a 2-to-1, more than a 2-to-1 on vaccines versus the cases. So we're starting to get some traction, some serious traction. Only 2,400 deaths yesterday. We're still under 500,000. It's not going to get to 1 million, but it's definitely going to be to 500,000, somewhere between, I would say, 6 and 650 million deaths, 650,000 deaths, And you know, it's a pandemic and we're getting it under control. And that's why we have to be upbeat about this. We are going to defeat this thing. Most of the time we want to see charts going up, but here's one we want to see going down. The daily reported cases dropping 43% on a 2-week moving average. I showed you this last week. It's continuing in the right direction. This is from the COVID tracking project, which actually is going to quit gathering data in about another 3 weeks, basically because they're saying there's nothing much more they can do. They believe this pandemic is winding down. So look at the weekly tests, weekly cases. I know the writing is really small, but just look at the trajectory, which is a decreasing amount. I've got a different version of this chart where you can more dramatically see we really did have 3 waves. You know, you heard people say 1 wave, 2 wave. Look at the hump there, and then it receded in July, went back up, receded in September, and then the autumn just really went crazy. It's an unusual phenomena from what I have studied. Usually 2 waves, not 3, and this last one was particularly bad. But this ebbing has also been pretty dramatic, and that is positive for us, I believe. President Biden said he struck a deal, $200 million. That sounds like a staggering number. I don't know how long it's going to take to actually implement that and administer those, but 200 million is almost 2/3 of the population of the U.S., okay? And that's a positive. Novavax, you know, they've been our star stock here in CG. They developed the 3rd vaccine. They've gotten the emergency approval from the FDA to move forward. Now they're supplying 40 million doses to South Korea. So we're starting to have a little bit of plenty, if you will, in this country to where we can supply some Asian and even European countries. That's what we do as Americans. And we have to take care of our own, and we will do that first. But this is a good sign that we have that kind of ability to do that. Johnson & Johnson, who you know, they were famous for their tests, okay? But then they, too, have come out with a vaccine, and now they have filed for conditional marketing authorization. That's a term I have not used on this program yet until tonight. Realize, you know, when people say, you know, the vaccines are approved and let's go get them, the reason some people are hesitating to do this is because these are emergency approvals. Now, I'm not offering an opinion on whether you should or should not get vaccinated. In fact, this show, the listeners of the show have been about equally divided here on whether they want to get vaccinated or not. But everything is tentative. There is no full FDA approval on a single vaccine. But most of the people in this country that are taking the vaccine wanted it, that they, you know, badly enough that they were willing to just take a chance, so to speak, on this emergency authorization. And now Johnson is getting conditional marketing authorization, which means they can actually run media to promote it here. It's we'll see if it happens in mid-March. I'll get back to you when this goes live. This is a trend that I'm watching. So the difference between how Europe in general, it's not a, you know, black and white situation. Europe propped up jobs or businesses, and the U.S. supported unemployed workers. Those are 2 different approaches. You can see that the U.S. approach was much more volatile than the European approach. This is a study I've just started, so I'm going to need to get back to you over the next, 10 to 12 weeks or full quarter. It looks to me like the European answer was less volatile than the U.S. answer. In other words, supporting of businesses, keeping businesses open and not sending stimulus checks to individuals. But we really don't know how this is going to play out. It's going to take some time to determine all these things. So let's get the questioning going here, guys. So the reports of COVID-19 ebbing from yours truly and others are answer A, far-fetched and not believable. Answer B, perhaps believable in the future. Answer C, I don't know how we got our letters mixed up here, seems reasonable and on target. And letter E, I guess we'll just not have a C tonight, okay, are finally reflecting the reality that COVID-19 will fade as a pandemic. So in other words, it's the world's finally waking up to what we thought. If you're going to answer E, that's what you're going to say. So go ahead and answer that. We're on a little bit of a delay here, as you guys know. When I introduce my next guest here, I'm going to just show you these charts while you guys are answering, and then I'll check the answer box or the chat box here. U.S. Median single family home prices quarterly going back to 1970. Look at this enormous move and then the pullback, dramatic 6-year pullback from 2005 to 2011. And even though we're in a recession, we are at all-time highs there. If I zoom in on this next chart, you can see that University of Michigan current market value, primary residence, just hit 310, which is a lifetime high. And our guest will be addressing this. So I just wanted to get that to you guys. Let's see what we have in the way of answers here. Hey, Karen, we got a D. Okay, seems reasonable and on target. Deb Bella, same thing. Good to see you, Debbie. Dr. J, D. Keith, D. Tommy, C. Okay, reasonable and on target. Yeah, well, that would have been C. Okay, Tom, so we got a lot of Ds, Hey, Martha from Michigan. If I missed anything else in the chat, you guys, let's see. Hey, Ann, how are you? Yeah, okay, guys. I think I've got it. Chris Collinsworth once told me he had dinner with Rush Limbaugh and several other sports announcers, and surprisingly, Rush wasn't the most right-wing guy at the table. That's interesting. I think that was his persona, Doc. Dr. J, JP Tech, for the rest of you here. I know him as Dr. J. Mainly, Rush wanted to communicate, and that's why I admired him so much. I'm just trying to tell you the truth, guys. I'm trying to tell you the research that I've found, the research that I'm using to make decisions on your portfolios, those of you that are clients, and those of you that are just here getting educated, that's fine. But I try to stand by what I say, double research, double source for everything I present. And I just really admired him for that. So, well, guys, I have been telling you, I think we've got all the answers here. I think I've addressed everybody in the chat. So I'm going to have you to go back to the chat pretty soon here because I am super excited. I have finally been able to procure the rock star realtor of Nashville, Susan Thetford. She has a YouTube channel called Nashville Redefined. She's been doing weekly videos. Puts a lot of time into them, covers the Nashville area, but a whole lot more in that. Just the mechanics of buying, what it means to get financing, just everything to do with real estate. And since I've been talking about real estate as obviously the number one consumer discretionary item and in such demand here in Nashville, I am just excited to have her on the show. So we had been talking about this and we text back and forth just talking about real estate. And I've got 3 quotes here from her. This is literally from our text messaging. This is the first one. So it's gotten triple hard to find a house under $1 million in Williamson County. So Williamson County is the county just south of Davidson County, which is where Nashville is located. And if somebody doesn't have at least $650 to spend, we have to go outside Williamson. It's just not possible any longer. Here's the next quote. If I can find homes for my buyers to buy, we'll be happy campers. This whole weekend coming up, I've got 3 different families, one from California, one from New Jersey, and one from Chicago. Now, you'd think she'd also have local clients. We're going to talk about this in our interview. And then the one here that just really got my attention when I said, we got to have you on the show now. This is just too good a story. My people made an offer of $80,000 over the asking price with an escalation clause, no appraisal, no loan, straight cash, and we were second in line. I mean, it was a $1,750,000 cash offer with the appraisal waived, and we still lost. I just can't imagine what that's like. Susan's lived here her whole life, and I would just be so pleased to introduce to you guys. Let's give her a warm CB3 Live welcome, Susan Thetford. All right. Are you there, Susan? Let's see. There you are.
I am here. Oh my gosh, you just taught me how I have to be careful of what I type, right?
Oh, I don't
I
know.
had no idea.
Yeah, and your volume sounds good. So there's so much to try to cover. So guys, don't wait for the end here to send in questions. If you have questions in general about real estate, Nashville real estate's fine, even outside of Nashville, because again, so many of her clients are coming from out of state. But let's just start with this, Susan. What makes Central Tennessee so appealing as a real estate market? Because in this, you've lived here your whole life, I believe. I'm sure, many of us just pictured Nashville years ago as, Dolly Parton, Merle Haggard, and small little ranch homes, but that is not the Nashville of today.
The funny thing about that is that's why I've called my channel Nashville Redefined. It's not redefining for us, but it's redefining for what Americans in general think of us. We do wear shoes and we do have not gap teeth.
Sure.
And we have it for a long time. I think people are looking for almost a Norman Rockwell kind of thought lifestyle now. Mm-hmm. And what we've been through with COVID and the last couple of years have been so difficult, both politically and from so many aspects. People are trying to really have a little bit slower lifestyle, get into a great place with a great business environment. I'm back to my Four Seasons, which I love. You've got variety.
Well, we certainly have winter in Nashville, in case anybody was wondering. In fact, one of our viewers said, I think it's warmer in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin than it is in Nashville today. But it is the aberration, right? Yeah.
Yes. Every 5 or 6 years, we do have a good dump like this, and it's actually a lot of fun. But you know what? I think a civility that might be missing in a lot of areas that people are missing, and we still have, and we're hoping to keep it that way.
In the green room, I was telling Susan this story. I hadn't told her this yet, but my wife Alice and I were at Publix buying some groceries, and we were pulling into the parking lot. And you've probably had this happen to you in Chicago or Atlanta or Florida, wherever you are. And the guy in the next parking lot had his car door open with his foot there on the guard and just talking and just enjoying life. And so we just waited patiently, no big deal. He finally turned around and saw us, and then you could tell he was mortified, closed his door real fast. We pulled in, started walking into the store, and he followed us and said, I'm really sorry. I just didn't see you there. Pardon me. And I looked at Alice as we walked away and said, can you imagine that ever happening in Chicago? That's the civility I think you're talking about, Susan.
Well, I'm sorry that that's not what you're normally used to. And I think that everybody in the country needs to be used to that. That is what we've got. And, you hold the doors for people and you speak in line and you just, that's civility. Absolutely.
And I think that the less we listen to the national media about how people behave and like each other. I got a story later on that's really an amazing Americana story. But let's just ask from because obviously there's a lot of reasons to live here because of climate, low taxes, civility, as you say. But aside from living here, is real estate itself a good investment in your opinion? And secondarily, is a second home an idea here if you want to maintain your primary state residence? What do you think about that?
It's interesting. We are at a time environment. Yes, absolutely. I think real estate is a great investment, but it's a long-term investment. It is not. It's a part of the whole portfolio. If you're going to live here and you are going to be here, renting is more expensive than owning in most cases. So if you're going to spend that money, why not put something that's going to grow over a lifetime? Also have the interest write-off and all the other tax benefits that go with it.
Sure.
If it's going to be a short-term investment, even people who think they're only here for a year or two, I say don't buy. So every single situation is totally different. But, the last couple of years in Williamson County, this, we've had appreciation of about 12 to 17%, depending on where in Williamson County it is. Davidson is more like 10 to 12% per year. You can't make that up.
Yeah, 10 to 12 is still pretty staggering. I can tell you that in Wisconsin and Illinois, I did not have anything close to double-digit appreciation for the sales I made in those states, or even Ohio when I lived there.
Right. Well, and even in the years, because as you say, I've been in this business for a long time, even in depression years that we've, '05, '07, up to about 10, the good areas of Nashville and the Williamson County, Middle Tennessee area didn't lose value. They may have had a 1 or 2% appreciation, but they did not lose it.
So let's
I don't
compare
know
that
many
briefly
investors
to
that can say
Florida,
that.
because we have quite a few Floridians as clients, and of course because I'm from Florida, I know a lot of people down there. How would this compare to a Naples, a Palm Beach, a Vero Beach, Stewart, that sort of thing, where they clearly, I mean, people were just abandoning properties in 2008 and 9, even in 10. You're saying that didn't
I
happen
think the
here?
difference, yeah, no, that didn't happen here. No, a lot of that was probably second homes,
Okay,
I would guess. So, we don't have that many that are second home kind of environment. People, this is a primary residence. They may have a second home in the Vero Beach. And if you're from Nashville, down in Destin or 31A. But, as your primary home, no. So I think there's less inflationary, buy, sell fast, that type of thing
sure.
in an area that is the people's primary residence.
Okay. Let me check questions here. Anybody? We won't wait till the end here. Same thing happening in Boise, and that's true. I actually have a nephew, Debbie D, that moved to Boise, and they said it's just crazy there as well. Florida locals are that way, extremely civil and courteous. Yes, I know. I was raised there. So, do you guys have any questions for Susan? Go ahead and put them in the chat. So, Greater Nashville, at least from the data that I have, is the number 3 immigration city. Now, immigration is not as in relation to, coming over the border of the U.S., but people going to Nashville as opposed to leaving Nashville. So the number 3 market behind Austin, Texas, and Phoenix. How is that phenomena changing life for long timers here in the greater Nashville area who might be, feeling like, gosh, there's a cultural change happening here, or B, we can't afford to buy because we've got these people that are coming in from these very expensive northern and western states, and they just open their checkbook and say, just tell me what to write. It was kind of like the example your customers wrote 80,000 over on a 1.7 house and lost it.
Yes.
I mean,
yes. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. The difficulty, and I think this is happening all over the country, though. If people are trying to leave the really tight urban spaces and get a little bit more space. So even if you lived in, I don't know, Midtown Chicago, I don't know those areas, you're just moving out further into the suburbs. But what I'm finding is houses are selling. There's a very big lack of inventory of homes available, period, for anybody to buy throughout the country. I went to Edsel Charles does market graphics research for around the world, actually. And a good 5 years ago, he said, we're coming out of this recession, but we are woefully poor and low in inventory of shovel-ready property that can be developed for single-family homes. And we're going to have a massive decrease in homes in the early 20s. Well, lo and behold, he's
and
right.
Here we are.
and here we are. That sounded like it was a long time ago, but it's the fact of it's hard to find new dirt. But what we're having here is, yes, people from out of town are coming with about 50% more money to purchase a home than the natives, and it is being a problem. It really is.
I'm sure it probably even creates some resentment. From Karen here, can a person buy a 3-bedroom ranch for $250 to $275, 1,200 to 1,500 square feet? Obviously, there's more places than Williamson County. In fact, one of your features coming up, I think, is Mount Juliet.
Right.
And they're collar counties, they call them. Davidson and would it be fair to say, as a just newly transplanted Tennessean, that Davidson and Williamson are the most famous Central Tennessee counties, but there are others.
It's an 8-county area. It's a very large metro. And yes, Wilson County. It depends on, Karen. Yes, the answer to your question is absolutely. It depends on what your needs are. I pick out Williamson County as specifically having that really massive growth lately, especially because it's really known for having exquisite public school system. And so wherever you go in the Williamson County school area, all those public schools are good. So if people can keep their children out of private schools at 15 to sky's the limit on the cost of that, that's what's really had Williamson County grow exponentially. Another county that's super good for that is Wilson County. That's where Mount Juliet is, Watertown, some of the other areas that are very easy access into Nashville. So if schools aren't your thing, if that's not a big deal for you, then you don't need to necessarily be in Williamson County unless you love it. So absolutely, we can find what someone needs. I just need to find their first 3 reasons for selling to find the right fit.
Got it. So I'm getting some questions also through text here. Is there much new construction in the area, or mostly you're talking about secondary home purchases? And is it hard to find a lot to build? Are there enough qualified contractors? That's good. That's from Leo.
Leo, those are some great questions. I hope I don't forget one. Yes, there's a lot of new construction, and what you're finding is those are what they're calling the lifestyle communities. But you're not finding it in the tight, close-in town area because we're just not inventing dirt. We're not inventing the 20, 30 acres or more
Sure.
that you can then develop and put in the road, water, sewer. So it's in more outlying areas. Williamson County's prime because it was farmland, right? It's agricultural.
Right.
So what we're having is the large volume builders or someone coming in, developing, putting in the road, water, sewer, getting it through the planning commission, which in itself, guys, just the purchase and the planning commission part of it to get it approved to start could easily take 3 to 4 years. Then by the time you put in the road, water, sewer, and put in the development, then what happens is a large volume builder, maybe Pulte or Dries or
Toll
Jones
Brothers,
or some of
somebody,
the larger
yeah.
companies. They come in and they buy up whole phases. They may be the only builder in there, or they may have different phases of lots in each community.
I've seen
So
in
we're
some of your
having
shows
those grow.
where there are multiple people, multiple builders in a certain area, and they're coming in after the sewers are laid, the roads are laid, and so once they buy it from the farmer, it's, as you just said, 3 to 4, 6 years even before lots actually go up because all that infrastructure has to be put in place.
Right. And think of all and think how much the economy can change between the thought process, let's
Sure.
buy this, put it under contract, and then getting it out of the ground for shovel ready. But to answer another one of his questions is, if you want to be really close into town, like if you really want to be close into Davidson County, Nashville itself, you're probably finding an older home, unless it's been something that was an older ranch home on an acre, maybe a half acre, torn down, and then a new home put on it. If that's the case, though, you've spent easily $500,000 to $600,000 to tear it down if you want to be in Green Hills, Belmead, Westmead, Hillwood, those kind of areas.
Sure. Leo's
are there good?
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, he was asking about, are there good quality builders?
Yeah, that was the last one.
Absolutely. The answer to that is absolutely.
Well, we've mentioned the big
find the
builders,
dirt.
Toll Brothers and et cetera, but they're obviously local builders that are competing with those national builders.
They're building more of the one-offs, or, they've got 4, 5, 7 houses going a year max, but they're not building the 30, 40, 50 a year.
Okay.
So if you go into one of those communities, you have to buy from one of those builders. You can't buy a lot and then bring in your own builder to it.
Okay. All right. We got lots of questions here. Keith, if I wanted to live 45 minutes from Nashville, I happen to know that this gentleman might have a child going to university here at some point. So 45 minutes away, what would be a good, county, city, much less expensive, sort of less expensive? What's 45 minutes from, downtown Nashville?
That's a long, are we talking drive time during traffic?
I would guess he didn't specify, but let's just call it that as the crow flies.
Let's call it that. Mount Juliet easily gets you there easily, and you can actually take the only passenger train.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one we've got, and it's in Mount Juliet, and it takes you to town. Hendersonville, if you're a lake person, you might want to be in one of those two areas. Hendersonville is in another county, but that's easy access. It's next to the 2 lakes. When you go down south, you might want to be in Maury County, which is a wonderful place. It's south, a little bit further south than Williamson County, and you can get to town through 840. So we've got 840 takes the circuit all the way around town, from top to bottom. So
Ne-
lots
Ne-
of options. Yes.
Yeah, Nellie says from Atlanta, Nashville's going through what Atlanta did. She lives in Atlanta. People from high cost areas coming in and willing to pay more. And I would guess you concur with that. We've been talking about that tonight. So
Absolutely. I will say, Nellie, that one thing that I remember my father when I was growing up, because I've always kind of been in this frame of mind to love real estate and development, is Nashville's been saying since Atlanta had the Olympics, we don't want to become the next Atlanta. That's just been something that's been said here for a long, long time.
and we'll leave their airport size. We have a nice airport here, but
Yeah.
it's not it's certainly not as big as Atlanta's. From Tom in Lake Geneva, are you familiar with Benton County? How are the property values there, and are the communities surrounding? Is it a good area? I don't even know where that is. I presume you do.
I do. Benton's very rural. It's gonna not be hard access. Anywhere's good access because we have so many interstates, 65, 24, 40. So it's easy access. Again, it just depends on what somebody wants as a lifestyle. Very rural, beautiful farmland, good parks, good outdoor life. Yeah,
Very good.
very affordable. As in, you can easily find that home that I think Nellie mentioned, 12 to 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. You might even be able to find a little acreage. That's doable.
Very cool. So this is my last question, you guys. If you got more that you want to give Susan's, put them in the chat box, okay? So and we touched on this earlier, why are California, New Jersey, New York, and Chicago relocationers your biggest customers? And one of the reasons we certainly know is because they open their checkbooks, because they've sold a home for probably more than they're going to have to pay here, or they're going to scale up here, right? Is that...
It's a combination of, I think I'm really still more hearing lifestyle, just plain lifestyle,
Okay.
A little bit slower, good business environment, not the prohibitive business. We're having a lot of, as you know, in Williamson County, the headquarters of many corporate headquarters,
Yeah.
National and international. Our good tax situation of being here. We have educated employment possibilities that are simple. The cost of living here is so much cheaper, not just in the housing, but in so many other areas that the affordability, the taxability, the lifestyle, the slower pace, the not having a good business environment to be able to create a business. And still, I will say we're still a conservative kind of. I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna do what I do. We have good employment ethics. And we expect everybody to pull their weight.
So this isn't on our list of questions, but I just feel inclined to ask this. When you said so many corporate headquarters are moving here, that sounds like another city in the South that I know, in the state of Texas. That would be Austin. Are there comparisons to the number one immigration city in America where people are moving and the number 3, Nashville?
I have always heard of Austin being a little Nashville. And, and I've only been to Austin 2 or 3 times, and they say keep Austin weird. Well, I do have a couple people from Austin who are moving here, and they say Austin has gotten a little too weird for them. So,
well, and of course now the power issues, which we'll cover in the next segment, guys. So any more questions? I had one more here from Keith. Does Lookout Mountain still exist? Is it still a tourist spot? His family went there in the 60s. He loved it.
Oh, you have to come back. Yes, it's absolutely gorgeous. That's up in Chattanooga. You need to go to Gatlinburg. Absolutely. We have waterfalls, so many great parks, day trips that are phenomenal. You must go back. It'll be a little different for you, but you're still going to love it.
And Keith didn't ask this, but for him, I'm going to just ask, and if I don't see any more questions, we'll move on. But Belmont College, really starting to get a name. I mean, I think it always has, but is that a draw to the area? So do students come in and then their parents go, wow, this is really nice. And is that part of the component in some of this, people leaving other areas?
That's funny that you asked that. I have a whole lot of the students come here. They love it. Vanderbilt, Belmont, David Lipscomb, they come here. They love it. They have start their families here. The parents want to be near their children and grandchildren. So really, in many cases, I'm finding grandparents following their kids kids want to be here. They like the way this is. They see they can raise their children here. The grandparents are following them.
Yeah, I get that. So, Susan, thank you. And guys, thank you for all your questions. This was a really lively session. We'll have to have you on again.
Thank you.
Assuming that there's any inventory that opens up and you can even tell us about any homes you've sold. So, really appreciate you.
Thank you. This has been an honor to be with you.
Oh, enjoyed it. Best wishes. Take care. All righty.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. All right, so let's go on to the next segment here. U.S. economy. U.S. economy. What are we doing here? Well, we always start this section, as you well know, the Russell up 15% for the year, NASDAQ 9, S&P just about 5, the Dow 3. Nothing's changing here. It started early in the year. This pattern has changed. It'll be interesting to see if the flagpole changes like a race, if the NASDAQ just finishes out strong, or if the Russell finishes out the strongest market, or the NASDAQ overtakes it. We will see. As for our programs, for those of you that are new watching, what you are seeing on the screen are my actual accounts. I trade, 4 different programs, our family money. We essentially are a family office, and then we have clients that trade along with us in segregated accounts, 1, 2, 3, or 4, all of our programs. Okay. And we put the performance up here. I don't put the GI up here, which is the income program, because that's more for people to draw on for income. But the growth programs, that's what people want to hear about. CG, which is just about 3 months short of a 10-year track record, up 14.25% for the year. But the stellar performer, guys, SG, 22%. Last year, SG and CG fought neck and neck, and at the very last 2 weeks of the year, SG overtook CG, but now it's just really been strong. We'll see how that plays out. They are different strategies, and they're just 2 really strong programs this year. You can see how the S&P is doing. You can see how we're doing. These are, again, actual track records, my statements from Interactive Brokers. DG, which is Diversified Growth, which is an ETF program, much less volatility, still beating the S&P, beating the Dow, actually pretty close to even the NASDAQ. So we're happy with performance. People have asked me to succinctly say what our investment strategy is. I've never done that on this show. I'm sorry it's taken me a year, but here it is. Get your camera out, do a screenshot. The CB3 financial investment philosophy is periodically to evaluate the 11 sectors, then the industry groups within those sectors, and then only consider leading stocks within those industry groups and sectors from those leading industry groups and leading sectors. Okay, it's a little redundant, but I want to be really clear on that. There are very few exceptions. One that I have right now is Costco. It's in consumer staples, which is not a strong performing sector, but I like the profile of the company. It's underperforming a little bit, but it's a very small portion of the portfolio, only 3%. Everything else that we have is very strong here. And I think that Costco is, we've had it for some time. It's going to be a good hold. The second part of this is we want to ride that momentum and invest in what Wall Street is bidding higher. We're not trying to outsmart Wall Street. We're trying to coattail Wall Street. And I'm not embarrassed or shy to say that. And we and our clients want to share in that wealth generation process. That's it. That's our entire philosophy on one screen, guys. Okay, so the featured stock, we got a couple new segments here. Generac. So for those people in Texas, man alive. I hope that some of them had generators. Wish everybody did. It's not an expensive piece of equipment. We had this stock in CG. We also have it in SG. I didn't have it in SG for a while, but now it's in both portfolios because I wanted to beef up and essentially have a 6% weight in it. And it opened at a lifetime high, up 9%. It's just been a rock star performer for us. They are a leading provider for power generation equipment. In other words, when you lose power, they can't help with the plumbing and everything that they're having in Texas, but that's one of the strong performers in our portfolio. So this is a developing story, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but with 70% of the U.S. covered in snow, there are bound to be problems in areas that normally don't have that, and certainly one of them is Texas. The grid they've been warning for years that you guys are prepared for heat, the 105 degree days or more. but you're not prepared for cold, and Texas is going, it doesn't really happen. Well, it did this year, didn't it? And now we have people without power, without water, and we have family members who do not have power and water, and even other family members in a nursing home that lost crucial resources in this time. Very, very concerning. So what's going to happen to fix this? And again, this is an evolving story. I'll cover it more next week, but storage backup power will have to be addressed. Competition from this heavily subsidized wind power. I mean, the reality here is I'm all for less expensive ways and renewable energy. No problem with developing that, but the handoff, okay, the handoff. And I use the analogy. I know I've got at least one audio guy on the line here. When I had a 4-track studio and I bought my first 16-track recording studio, I didn't just expect overnight that the clients were going to shift to the 16 and be willing to pay me the extra fee to do that. It took time to hand off from the 4-track to the 16-track to the 24-track. This handoff process from fossil fuel to renewable is going to take longer, and it's just going to have to be more thought out. I think Texas is finding that out right now. So, for instance, the wind shares tripled to 25%. There were a lot of problems out in the field. It's not just the windmills freezing. So, again, I'll have more on this next week. But it's definitely an issue. In economic indicators, I've trimmed it back this week because I knew we were going to have a long segment with Susan. But GDP's still looking strong. The solid blue numbers. The current quarter, we're expecting almost 5%, and then the next quarter, second quarter 21, be strong. Where's that going to come from? It's going to come from many different sectors. We'll drill into that as that data evolves. People continue to ask me about this minimum wage. So why they say, and it's not just you guys, but other people that'll email me because they see me on YouTube or whatever. It's like, look, it's better for everybody. Everybody just, if it's making less than 15, just goes right to 15. Well, it doesn't work that way. Nobody can force an employer to keep someone employed. And you can see from the data here that, 45 economists from the Wall Street Journal, survey saying that this could result in, 2.5 million job losses. Decreased by 1 million to 2.5 million. I mean, there's a significant range of possibilities here that could be negative outcomes. In other words, there'll be more gains for people that are staying in their jobs, so that GDP will rise and their income will rise. But for people whose jobs get eliminated, that's a negative. So you have to offset those two with, is it going to actually be a gain? Well, it's not going to be a stronger gain as it would seem by just the whole world rising to $15, or at least the whole country. It's just not that simple. Retail sales, we're back to where we were. You see the V again, guys? Been talking about this V-shaped recovery for a long time. That is a real narrow V. We love seeing that. Looking at it from different aspects, appliances and electronics. Number one gaining area for retail sales. Why? People are staying home and they're buying TVs and refrigerators and just making their homes nicer. Furniture, same thing there. Non-store retailers, in other words, online. You can see who the winners are. And of course, that's where we're trying to do. We're trying to follow the money that Wall Street's following to invest on your behalf. And that's how we're getting right now those returns in CG and SG as strong as they are. Manufacturing output. So the Federal Reserve has reported that industrial production, as a measure of, factory, mining, et cetera, utility output, has increased for the fourth straight month. But importantly, the manufacturing portion of that has increased. See the V? There are V's all over the place, and it's basically just below its pre-pandemic level, which, hard to believe, was just about a year ago, guys, just about a year ago. I put this on here because I've never shown you anything to do with grains, but you can see that grain production, okay, this is corn, wheat, soybeans, oats, highest it's been in more than a decade. Why is this important? Well, it means we've got plenty of food here to eat, and it means we have food for export, okay? Even in a pandemic, even in a recession, which we've now exited, but still, this data going up, the yellow shaded area there is a recession. That's what we just exited, okay? Very, very strong data. So let's look at this and see where we are. And you guys always I finish with this, at least in this section. 73% long-term is where the returns are, or the percentage of stocks that surprise on earnings. Last week it was at 83. It's only dropped 1%, and we're basically at more than 60% of the S&P 500 as reported. We still got 145 companies to go, but if we stay in this 80, 82 range, that is a significant improvement over the 73%, which is the traditional surprise area. Okay. Looking forward, a little segment here, just showing, we talk about how well Tesla's doing, but look how well NIO is doing. We are seeing a pretty significant bump in EV, which is electronic vehicle or electric vehicle, consumption worldwide. And I'm seeing calls in Seeking Alpha and Daily Shot. Again, I always try to give you guys a couple of different sources. The game is over for ICE vehicles. Have you heard this phrase? Does anybody know? Type it in the chat box. What's an ICE vehicle? I'm going to wait for a second, let you guys think about that. That's an acronym, okay? ICE. What is an ICE vehicle? All right, watching here like Generac and Costco. Good. I'm glad you do, Deb, because you've got them. So, all right, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to wait and see if anybody knows what an ICE vehicle is. So Tesla to produce $25,000 cars as early as next year in Shanghai to compete essentially with NIO. So I just talked about what's going on in Texas, and we've got to be real careful about the handoff from fossil fuel to renewable energy. It's not quite the same for cars. First of all, because if you run out of electric charge, you get out of your car and I guess you take an Uber to wherever you need to go. But if your home is without power, without gas, without water, that's a much, much bigger problem. Very good, Karen. Internal combustion engine. Karen Yates gets an A+. Very good. And so the cost parity between ICE and EVs is the holy grail, okay? And that cost comparison is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And we'll see. I mean, in this state, there are tens of thousands of Tesla and other EV owners, even in a state that's hilly like this. So we're starting to see progress in that area for sure. Dr. J, you also got it. Very good, guys. An ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine. Okay, new segment. And I told you last week that I appreciate it when I have listeners that submit things to me. And so I've decided to do a new segment. Now, not everything on this program has to be, I guess purely financial. Okay. But I saw this story and I just thought, this is something Rush would say. This is something Rush would share. And this is from the Washington Post. Okay. So this is not exactly a beacon of conservatism in America, but it's a really great story. And I've got these notes in front of me. I don't have this whole thing memorized. And it's not too long, guys. Hang with me. But this woman basically had not taken down her Christmas lights. And this is in South Florida. So it's not like there's snow on the lawn and she couldn't do it, And basically, she had some issues going on, which nobody, I guess, in the neighborhood knew about, which in and of itself is kind of sad. And she's getting these letters and cards saying, take your lights down. It's Valentine's Day. It's an eyesore. And I'm reading her interview here and she said, well, what people didn't know, and this is, just as Americans, we just have to be sensitive about this, with our neighbors. No one really knew what was going on in here. Well, we had an entire family sick of COVID starting on Christmas Eve. And within 2 weeks, it became very, very serious. And within a month, we had lost 2 family members, one of whom was my father and one was a cousin. Okay. And, my father had just decorated all these items on our tree and it was devastating to us. So I just think it's a great story that what happened then was the neighbors found out about this from a Facebook posting. And so everybody put their Christmas lights back up and basically said, look, we're going to stand in solidarity with our neighbor. If she wants her decorations up because it reminds her of her dad who had put them up and now he's deceased from COVID, don't just say something to somebody. Be sensitive. Understand that they may have a different walk that they're going through in life than you are. I just thought this was a great story and probably all tied together here with Rush's passing. yeah, finances are important, but part of what we're doing here on this program is building a community, caring about each other. Sure, we're caring about, financial tips and ideas and strategies, but we're just trying to build a community of Americans that love what we have here, that love this country, that want to make it better, that believe in American exceptionalism. I would guess all of you are, or you wouldn't be watching this show. And I just thought this was a neat thing. So I appreciate you letting me share that with you. In our crypto corner, I don't know if it's a corner, but it's definitely moving. Just today, Bitcoin traded above $52,000 a coin for the first time, up more than 77% for the year, which means a little over 6 weeks, guys. It's pretty staggering. Why is this important? MicroStrategy announced that they were going to offer $600 million in convertible bonds to buy more Bitcoin. So here's a company that's going to float bonds and take the proceeds not to invest in their factories or widgets or whatever, but to invest in Bitcoin. And they actually have people buying the bonds. The signal from that should be, well, if they're going to do that and buy Bitcoin, why don't I just forget that and buy Bitcoin? But that's another issue. Okay. And it's because of what's happening in the media. You see MasterCard, you see BNY, Bank of New York Mellon. We're preparing right now for the future of crypto and announcing that MasterCard will start supporting crypto directly within our network. Thursday, JP Morgan, that was last Thursday, guys. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, basically called on their favorite news outlets, and they leaked, if you will, that they have their own plans to invest in the crypto world. So I'm really paying attention to this. I get calls every single week as to, are we going to offer a fund right now? I do not plan to do that, guys. There's a lot of reasons for it. I've sent you videos. I'm delaying doing my own video right here because, candidly, I don't want to take attention away from the equity side. And I think the one video I showed you, I stopped hearing from the people that really wanted to hear more about cryptos because I think it scared them, that Wall Street Journal video. But anyway, I've got this little section. I'll bring this to you every week. So what are your thoughts on the market for 2021? Answer A, we're off to a great start, which I expected. B, we're off to a great start, and I'm surprised. C, well, we might be off to a good start, but I think we're going to see a drop soon. And D, are we really off to a good start? You probably don't want to answer D because the market right now is showing a pretty good yearly return for 6 weeks. So let me check the message board. A, B, C, or D, guys. A, B, C, or D. All right. You never know. Thank you, Debbie Demogowski. You never know someone else's story. Be sensitive, be human, and care. That's a lovely message. Thank you for sharing that. Hey, Andre, how are you? And thank you for saying thanks for that story. I probably wouldn't have done that story if somebody hadn't sent it to me. So if you guys hear a story, this new segment is called, American Stories. Send me something, let me hear from you. We're off to a great start, which I expected. That's Nellie, Dr. J, Debbie D. What else do we have here? Trying to follow chat from multiple sources here because some people are texting me. Anybody else? I'm kind of running long here, so I want to keep moving. I got a lot of A's there. That's good. On the political scene, Parler is back up again. So I know it's a financial show, but will this affect things? We will see. I know that there's been quite a brouhaha of First Amendment rights being lost. And now with Parler back, I see people moving to Rumble and off of YouTube. We may at some point, just so you know, do a simulcast to YouTube. I got to go back to this chat box. I don't think we've ever had total, unanimous responses here. Everybody expected it. And I don't know if it's because you guys are all geniuses or you're just following my encouragement, but I'm glad you expected. And yeah, the market is off to a terrific start. So in the political section, really short this week because we had so much going on. I think former President Trump will now, A, enjoy his retirement and fade from public view. I'm sorry, I couldn't even say that with a straight face. B, stay out of the limelight for a short time, then reemerge with a fanfare to lead the Republican Party. C, slowly return and consider a 2024 presidential run. D, who cares? Oh, gosh. All right, guys. I'm checking the message board. I don't think I've missed anything. You guys had great questions for Susan. Thanks for doing that. We'll have her back. We'll have her back because I tell you what, real estate is absolutely an investment class. Anytime, did you hear those numbers? Davidson County, where Nashville is, 9 to 11, 12%. Williamson County, 13 to 15%. Man, yeah. Investing definitely is a part of it. So what do we have here in our answers? A novel. Hey, okay. All right, what else do we got here? Okay. All right, we got answers again coming in. We've got B, stay out of the limelight, and then emerge to lead, okay? Who cares, Dr. J? Why am I surprised, Doc? Okay. But you know what? It takes all kinds of answers, and that's fine. Everybody's got their opinion. We do have the First Amendment. It is alive and well in America. Guys, it was a long show, but thanks for hanging with me. I always end with this, for we have not been given a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. From 2 Timothy, it remains my deeply held belief that we will not only survive this pandemic, this political acrimony, these world economic challenges, but we will emerge a stronger and better people and better nation. It's really my privilege to be here every single week to speak to you. I'm following in the footsteps of giants, and one particular giant who I referenced tonight. And whether you agreed with everything he said, and really all of us from time to time would disagree, I'm sure, with Rush Limbaugh. But he spoke his mind. He loved this country. He believed in exceptionalism. He wanted the best for people. And guys, that's exactly what I want for you and for everyone on the show. Please tell your friends, tell your family. We are building a community that's exciting, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say nurturing. And it's just a cool place to be on Thursday nights. All right. I will see you on Monday. I will see you next Thursday night. As always, the creek don't rise, as they say. At CB3 Financial Group, we don't just manage your assets, we become one of them. And that's what we've tried to do with this program. From COVID to U.S. politics to the world economy to clarity. This is CB3 Live.